this tutorial, we will create an authentication system using Angular. So here we are at the home page where we show you are not logged in. We have a login form here to log in and a register form. So let's register. I'll create a user here. And the password is test. When we submit, we'll redirect to the login page. Now let's use the user that we just registered. So test@test.com. And the password is test. Sign in. And here we display hi test. So test is the name that we just registered. Now the login and register are removed with a logout button. When we click logout, we will show login and register again, and we are logged out. So this is the app that we will build. Before building the app, I would like to remind you that this video is meant to be combined with other videos. So if you want to use Angular with Laravel, Django, Deno, Nest.js or Go, I provided some links in the description below. In case you don't want to build a backend, don't worry, I have a solution for you. Also, make sure to check scalablescripts.com. Now I will show you how to build a backend without actually building it. So, if you already built the backend, you can skip this part. If you don't want to build it, then first, before I explain this repository, download Docker. So go to docker.com products Docker desktop and download the right version for your machine. I already did it and I have here an icon on top. So in order to build a backend, you have to install Docker. Now this repository is just a simple docker compose.yaml file. You can copy this file, you can download the code, you can do anything. In my case, I will just copy the code and I will do a git clone. So I will open my terminal and I will write git clone this repository. So now that is downloaded, let's go to the folder Auth API is called, and you have Docker installed. Run docker compose app. And now Docker will pull all the images and download all the files, and it will build the backend for you. Now let's wait till it's completed. Now it's completed. So we are almost finished. Now I will type Control C, Command C to close the containers. And we need one last command. So first, I will do a docker compose app, but -d, so we don't want to see the logs here. So with this command, now we don't see anything. So we can clear it. It doesn't show anything. And let's run this last command. This will build the database. So everything is built. Now we can access localhost port 8000, and this is our backend running on port 8000. Now we will consume this API by building our app. Now let's start creating our Angular app. Go to cli.angular.io, and here you need to install the Angular CLI. I already did it, so let's create an Angular project. ng new, I'll call the project Angular Auth. I'll add a flag here, skip git, because git will color our files when we change them, so I don't want that. I'll add Angular routing. I'll pick CSS here, and let's wait till it's completed. So everything is installed now. Let's open the project with my IDE. I'm using WebStorm here, so you can use Visual Studio Code, it's the same. And I will open the terminal and run ng serve. Now the files will load and run to the browser. to the port 4200. So this is the port. I will copy the link, paste it here, and this is our Angular project running. Now let's change this HTML to a Bootstrap template. Go to getbootstrap.com, click Get Started, and here we will copy the CSS. Let's add the CSS to index.html. I'll paste it here. And now let's add the template. Go to Examples, and I will select the sign-in form. View page source, and this main div is what we want. I'll copy it, and I will add it to the app component.html. I will remove all this code into the code that we just copied. I will remove the spec files because we won't add any test files. And let's add also the CSS. So this sign-in CSS, let's select it, and I will copy to app component CSS. Actually, I will copy to style CSS because I want to share it with every component. So this will look like this. Let's make some other changes. So we don't need the body and the HTML CSS here. So it looks better now. And let's go to app component.html. Here we'll make some changes. We will remove the labels, the image. Let's remove every label. So I will remove also the IDs here. So I will keep everything very simple. This is the login form. Now we need to add the header. So I remove get bootstrap. So go there again, go to examples, and here we'll select navbar static. View the page source again here, and let's copy the navigation here. I'll paste this on the top. So let's see what it looks like. It looks like this. Now here I will remove this button. I will change the name to the top navbar to home. I will remove these classes. I will remove this form. And for this UL, I'll keep one li. This will be login. And I will copy it, create another one, register. So this will look like this. So this is the navigation that we want. Now we want to create the login component, register component, and home component. So let's create them. And I want to create them via Angular CLI. So to create the components, we run ng generate component register. So we created the register component. Note that we also update app.module.ts. So once we create a component, this module will be updated, and here we will add the register component. Let's do the same for login, but I will generate it with shortcuts. So generate component login. So this is the same as the other one. Let's generate the home component also. And we need one more component, which is the navigation. So we created all the components now. Let's cut this code, and I will add it to the navigation. I will remove the spec file here. So we added here the navigation, and to use the navigation in app component.html, we have to use it like this, app nav. So we have to add the prefix up in front of the tag. So this app nav won't change anything. Now let's make these links work. So to make them work, go to app routing module, and here we'll add the routes for our app. The first one is the path to empty, so the main page. The component there will be the home component. So we added the main path. I will add also the register, so the login first, and the login component here. And this is register. This is register component. So we added the routes now, but we won't see any changes because we have to change the app component.html. I'll cut this form now, and I will change this with a router outlet. So inside the router outlet, we will render all these components. So every time we pass, we put routes, we have to render them in a router outlet. The code that I just cut, I will add it to the login component.html. And as we can see, home works. So we are at the home page. Now let's make the links work to go to the other pages. So go to nav component.html. I will remove the href here and convert it with a router link. This will go to the main page, and let's add the router link for all these other links. Router link to login and the router link to register. So we added the router links. Click login, we can go to the login. Register, we go to register. Home, we go to home. So everything works fine. Now let's complete the register form. First, I will copy the form from the login and I will paste it to the register form. So I will remove this, paste it here, and this is please register. Here I will put submit. Here I will add another input, which is a type text and is the name. So this is the form that we want to use. Now there are two ways to submit a form in Angular. I will use reactive forms. There are normal forms and reactive forms. So to use the reactive forms, we have to import first the forms module here in our app module.ts, and we'll import also reactive forms module. So don't forget to import it also here. Now let's use them. So we need to create a form, and we have to declare it as a form group. Also don't forget the imports here. In the constructor, we have to get a form builder. So private form builder, we have to declare it as a form builder. So we have to inject it better. So we got the form builder, and now let's build the form. So this form is equal to this form builder group, and inside we'll put all the inputs that we want. So we want the name, and we can assign the default value to empty. Email, the default value is empty, and the password also empty here. So this is the form. Now to use it, we have to define here that the form group like this is equal to this form. So now we need to add for every input, we need to set them as a form control name. So form control name is we define the name, email, and the password, and we have to set them here. So form control name is name for this input. This is email here, and this is password. So we created a form, and this form we assigned the form here, and for each input we know that the form builder has 3 inputs. Now what is left is to submit the form. So we add here submit, and we have to create a function submit here. Let's create it, submit, and we have to use it here, submit. So with this we can call this form, this function, sorry. This needs a return type, so it's void, and here we want to call a backend to register our user. So to call a backend we have to get another module. First we have to import it from app module.ts, and we will add the HTTP client module. And let's go to register component.ts. First, before sending the request to the server, I'll console log here. When we submit, I want to get the data that we submitted, so I'll console log this form get raw value. And let's see what we console log when we submit this form. So I will console log this random data, submit, and as we can see we console log what we sent here. So now we need to send this data to the server. So let's import the HTTP client here, private HTTP client. So don't forget also the import here. Now with this HTTP we can send requests to the backend. So we want to send a request HTTP post. We need the endpoint here, which is HTTP localhost port 8000/API/register. The second parameter is the data that we want to send, and the data is this get raw value here. And after we send this data, we want to get a response, so we have to subscribe for a response. So the response is gotten from this variable, and let's console log the response. So let's create the user again. So a@a.com, submit, and as we can see we created the user and we console log here. So we have also one ID here. So the user was created. Now after we register, we want to redirect to the login. So to redirect there, we have to get another import here, so another injection, which is the router. We have to import it from Angular router, and once we successfully get the response, we will send this router navigate to login. We can make this shorter like this, and since we don't use the response, I will use it like this. So let's register another user, b@b.com, and as we can see we redirected to login. Now let's make the login work. So we have the form here. Now let's add here the form group. So form as a form group. Let's add the form builder here. and we will set here this form is equal to this form builder group. We'll pass the email and the password. So we set the form. Now let's go to login component HTML. Let's set the form group. Here is our form, and here we need the form control name, which is email. Here the form control name is the password. Everything is set. Now the only thing left is the submit form. Submit function, sorry. So this is a void function, and we will use it here. Submit. So the submit function is created successfully. Now let's send a request also here. So it will be similar to this. So I will write it again. Let's import HTTP client here. Let's send a request. This HTTP post HTTP localhost port 8000/API/login. The data that we want to send is this. Why do we show this? This form get row value. And we have also to subscribe for the response. Now this is not enough for us to log in, because when we log in, we want to get also the cookies from the backend. And to get the cookies from the backend, we have to add another option here, which is with credentials to true. So with this, we will get the cookies from the backend, which will allow us to log in. So now we'll get the response, and once we get the response, we want to redirect to the home page. So get here the router again, and after we get the response, we'll call this router navigate to the main page. So the only difference here is this is required in order to get the cookies. Now I will inspect, go to application, cookies, and I don't have any cookies here. Now let's send the request for the user that we just created and the password, sign in, and we redirected to the home page. Notice that now that we have a cookie here, which is HTTP only. So this cookie will be necessary for us to retrieve the authenticated user. So let's get the authenticated user in the home component. Here we'll display a message. So let's create a message. You are not logged in. And I will show this variable here, message. So that's it for this HTML. It will display the message here. Now let's call the backend to get the authenticated user. So private here, HTTP client. And let's get the user. This HTTP get, we need to pass the endpoint here, which is HTTP localhost port 8000/API/user, and we need to subscribe. So there are two cases. One is when we get the response, and for the moment I will console log the response, and the other one is when we get the error and I'll console log the error here. So in our case, we probably get an error. So we get an error because we are not unauthorized. Why we are unauthorized? Because we need to add, just like we did with the login here, we need to add with credentials. So just like we got the credentials, we have to send them. So with credentials to true here. If we set this header, then we console log the user. So as we can see, the user is retrieved. Now, based on the result, we want to change the message. So when we get the user here, we'll say this message is equal to hi response name. So we have to define the response as any here. And when we get an error, so I will make the message an empty string here. When we get an error, we'll say this message is equal to you are not logged in. So we can see hi A here, and A is the name of the user. Now that we are logged in, we want to display a logout button here. So how do we display the logout button here? Because the nav component is another component. How do we communicate from this component, from the home component to the nav component? In that case, we have to use event emitters. So I'll create a directory. I'll name it emitters. And I'll create a file here, emitters. Here, this is just a class, so export class emitters. Here, let's import event emitter from Angular core here. And the event emitters here in this class, I'll create them as a static property. Why static? Because we can access them directly. So I will show you what I mean by that. So the emitter that I want to create, I'll call it auth emitter. And this will be a new event emitter like this. And we can define the type, which is a Boolean. So this is our event emitter. And how do we use this event emitter now? In the home component now, we can use it directly like this. So emitters, we need to import it from emitters. We need to call our auth emitter. So this is the emitter that we just created, this one. And we need to emit an event. So the event is a Boolean value. We define the Boolean value here. Once we get the message here, the Boolean value is true. So we are authenticated here. In the error case, we are not authenticated, so we will emit false. So this is the emit case. Now, in the navigation, we will subscribe to the event, so we will listen to that event. So let's listen. Here we will add emitters, auth emitter, subscribe. And here we'll get the auth variable, which is, I'll cast it here, a Boolean. So now we know for sure that we are authenticated. Let's go to auth component.html. And here we want to add the logout button. First, I'll create a variable authenticated. And by default is false. and in the nav component I'll make the condition here for this UL, so I'll copy this and paste it again here. We'll show login and register when if condition here, ng if we are not authenticated. If we are authenticated, we'll show logout, so ng if here authenticated, and we'll display logout here. And authenticated, so not here, we'll set that variable here, so this authenticated is equal to auth. So in short, we will call here the user, and there are two cases. In case the user is logged in, we'll emit true and the navigation will handle that event. And the same case when the user is not authenticated. Now if we go here, we can see logout. So now let's make the logout work. To make the logout work, go to nav component.ts, and here let's create a logout function. So logout here, and this is a void function. We'll use this function here to the logout. We'll add here click logout. So let's log out now. What do we want to do when we log out? So we'll call the backend. So let's get here private HTTP client, and here we'll call this HTTP post to HTTP localhost port 8000/API/logout. We need to send the node data, so the data that we will send is an empty object. And the third parameter is we need the with credentials, so we will add here with credentials to true. We will send that cookie in order to delete it. In the end, we need to subscribe, and once we subscribe successfully, we will set the event emitter. So actually I don't want to send the event emitter, so I will just set this authenticated to false. So let's try this. Click logout, and we are at the sign-in page. Login and register are displaying here. We go here, you are not logged in. If we log in again, we can see hi A, the name, and we can see logout here. So this was the authentication that I wanted to build. I hope you liked this tutorial, and if you did like it, please share it and subscribe. Thank you.